Unsolved.
The murder of Sherry Jo Bates. This video is about Michael Zlaket, and I'm just going to call him Michael Z. This video just continues looking into Michael Z and into his parents, or his father mainly, and maybe uncle, and then also into Patricia, who wrote the letter to the Press Enterprise. First, I gotta correct the record about this handwritten letter. This letter here was mailed to Sherry Jo Bates's father on April 30th, 1967. And there were two other similar letters sent, one to the Press Enterprise and one to the Riverside Police. The Riverside Police looked into this years later because the person that wrote these letters confessed to writing these letters, and the person lived in San Bernardino and said they were mixed up kid when they wrote them. Now, I don't know if that person is Michael Z or not. He lives in San Bernardino, so it could be him. The police, the Riverside Police, aren't saying who that person is that wrote the letters because the person confessed. They did a DNA test on the stamps, and it proved not to be the murder of Sherry Jo Bates or the Zodiac Killer. So to them, the case is solved on that. Now, this letter is not the same as the confession letter, the typed confession letter that you see here side by side. This is considered legit by the police because it has information about the crime that people didn't know, like the middle wire of the coil being pulled and some of the other things that it mentions in the letter or the confession. So this is legit, and these handwritten letters or notes, the three of them that were sent in April of 1967, about 6 months after the murder, are not considered authentic. Now, returning to Michael Z, who could have written those handwritten letters. He was attending San Bernardino Valley College, which is a junior college, and he graduated from there in June of 1967, and then he moved on in his education and went to Cal State University, San Bernardino. And so, looking at this alumni book, which was published in 2009, you can see here about Michael. First, Michael graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in 1970. And then in 1977, he earned some kind of college certificate. Then you can see he was in the business of security. And at the time, 2009, he was working at 3975 Archibald Avenue in Rancho Cucamonga. Then it says his residence. That's his parents' house that he must have inherited, so he still kept living there. Another thing I think that needs to be pointed out is Michael was a reporter for the college newspaper, and so he would be familiar with writing to the editor and knowing that kind of thing during that time. Now, one of the issues with Michael Z being the Zodiac Killer and responsible for the murders in the San Francisco Bay Area is San Bernardino is 7 hours away, I guess 400 miles or so away from that area. So how could he travel up there or be in that area during those crimes. It's obvious Michael was living in San Bernardino and attending San Bernardino College from 67 to 1970. But we know from the crimes that they occurred like on weekends mostly in the San Francisco area. And they all happened, or actually they're not all, most of them happened in 1969. So it's possible Michael wasn't attending the college that year. And that's how it's possible that he committed those murders. And then again, it's possible he had nothing to do with them. Now here is an application that Michael Z filled out. And you can see he wrote his name in capital letters, and then email address none, an evening phone. It looks like he wrote that, but someone else might have wrote that. But we can use this to compare it to the envelope sent to the Press Enterprise. I keep saying Press Enterprise because that's what the newspaper is called today. And looking at the letters, I can't see anything that looks the same. They look different to me, suggesting that he didn't write that letter or on that envelope. Here's where Nancy Drew's detective skills come into play, at least in my mind. The envelope lettering on there doesn't look like the natural writing style of the suspect. I feel like that isn't the person's natural writing, that they disguised their writing because they didn't want to get caught. So they wrote their A's different. They put dots on the I's. They did different things here. And they rewrote over the letters. But there's certain things that do stick out that they are similar to the Zodiac, like abbreviating California the way they did, which was the way to do it back then, and writing that attention to the left there with the colon. I think that's similar to the Zodiac letters. Now shifting gears and looking at Michael Z's father, Alexander Carl. He was born on January 7th, 1918. So that would make him 50 years old during, or around 50, during the Zodiac murders. Now Alexander married Evelyn Michael on December 4th, 1941 in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Now Alexander was in the military, and he joined prior to World War II, and eventually he ended up being in the Air Force because the Air Force was created out of World War II. It divided out from the Army or Navy, I'm not sure. He lived in, at this time, Ontario, California, which is west of San Bernardino, and it's a major hub of Southern California. Now looking at the back of his card, you can see how tall he was, 5'9.5", his weight, 153, his eye color, brown, his hair, brown, and his complexion is dark brown. And so that's helpful to know. Now looking at the front again, you can see the lettering doesn't look anything like the RCC desktop poem writing, and it also doesn't look like any of the Zodiac's letters. If you look at individual letters like the L, and the A, and the R, they're nothing like the Zodiac letters. And even the numerals are not the same. as the Zodiacs. So it sure doesn't look like this gentleman is the Zodiac Killer. And lastly, going back to Patricia, or Mary, and that letter that she sent to the Press Enterprise. I've kind of racked my brain on why she would write this letter to the editor. And I think it's just a simple reason. She thought maybe he's the one that did this, killed Sherry Jo Bates. And that's all. And maybe she was kind of giddy or silly about it and wrote it to the Press Enterprise and didn't send it to this information to the to the police. I was trying to think if there's like anybody that she knew that could have killed Sherry Jo Bates, and then she wrote this letter to try to throw the police off or something. But I can't make any sense out of that. Well, this ends this episode of Unsolved. And next weekend, I will have another Jonbenet Ramsey chat show and another video on the Zodiac Killer Case. But I'm not quite sure what that topic will be. So I'll see you next weekend.